Hello, it's me, Sweetie, and thank you so much for being here with me today for my newest video. This is going to be part of a series where I give you in-depth instructions and a tutorial on how to do universally applicable makeup for different styles of Lolita. Today we'll be doing my personal favorite style, sweet. So get comfortable, maybe grab some tea and a snack because this will likely be a long video, and come learn with me how to do some universal sweet Lolita makeup. You can start your makeup in any order, but I personally begin with my eyes, so that's where I'm going to start today. My first step is that I use the MAC paint pot, and what color is this? Soft ochre. And this is a cream-based product that's just going to give you a nice solid blank canvas to begin your eye look on. Now when I do this, I start in the middle at the bottom and I kind of work upwards and outwards from there, because with the way you're going to want to blend your eyeshadow, you want most of the color payoff to be in the center middle and to kind of blend and diffuse up and outward towards your eyebrow. And also, if you're going to be using any kind of glitter, which most likely we will be for this sweet look today, you want most of that stickiness and tackiness that a base like this usually provides to be in the middle of the lid. Let's pick up a little bit more and we'll go over here to the other eye. Now I'm just using kind of short stippling strokes almost. I'm sure you could apply it some other way, but that's just what works for me. And I usually stop the brush application around the crease of my eyelid, maybe a little bit above it, and then I just use my ring finger, which will have the softest touch to use on your eyelids, to blend it out just a little bit. For today's look being sweet, I wanted to do something simple and pink that anyone can manage. So just to give an overview of the look I'll be doing today, it'll be a pink eye look with 3 different shades. That's usually how I build my eyeshadow looks. I choose a light, a medium, and a darker shade just to give my eye shape some depth and frame it up really nicely. So the first color I'm going to grab is going to be from my Huda Neon Obsessions palette. It's going to be this color right down here in the corner. I don't think these have names, but it's the lightest pink right here. So in the pan it does look a little orange, but on the lid it is definitely very pink. So I'm going to take this color on a fluffy blending brush like this. It's got a little bit of a tapered dome to it, so you just want something that's got some fluff to it so that it can move and blend the product really easily. Now it's good to build really slowly, so if you start off with just a little bit of product on your eyelid, that's perfectly fine. It's much better to start off with a little bit than go in with too much and then you can't blend it anywhere it needs to go and it just turns into a big headache. So start slowly and use a little bit at a time. Yeah, I think this is about as close as I ever want the camera to be to my face, but let me just go ahead and start blending this. So I'm going to start right here in the crease, and I'm just going to do circular motions and also moving the brush back and forth, and then I'll move to the middle here, same thing. I'm just gonna do little circular motions both directions, and then I'll kind of move it slightly into the inner corner here as well. But I want most of the product to stay on this outer third area here. And in the end, I'm going to do some back and forth windshield wiper motions, focusing mostly on the edge of where the color hits my skin, just so that we can soften that up. You don't want it to be too harsh. And like I said, we're going to start off with a little bit of color at a time, so I just dipped back in a little bit, and I'm going to add just a little more color, again mostly focusing on that outer third area. Alright, I'm happy with that, and I'm going to do the other eye really quickly. So now that I've got the lightest shade of my shadow down, I'm going to move on to my medium shade from the Huda Neon Obsessions palette as well. I'm just going to move over and use the next darkest pink in the corner here, and I'm going to take that on a slightly different brush. I'm going to be using this kind of flatter but still slightly fluffy application brush, and I'm using a flatter brush this time because I'm going to be working on the lid a little bit, so you'll want something that maybe has a little more of a flat, slightly less fluffy texture. And again, we're going to dip in just a little bit, and where I'm going to be applying this is pretty much from the halfway point of my lid here out to the outer third. And again, I'm just using some short stippling motions, and right now we're just laying down the color, so it doesn't have to be too precise or anything like that, and you can move it into the crease right here as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, I've definitely got some color down. Now I'm going to take that same fluffy brush that I used in the crease before. I'm going to dip in just a little bit to the pan right here, tap it off, and I'm going to use that to blend this darker color that we just put onto the lid up into the crease as well. But this time I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the lid. I'll pretty much just be focusing the color from the halfway point to the outer third. And we're pretty much just doing the same thing, small circular motions, and I'm also going to blend this outward towards my brow bone and socket as well. And I'm also going to be doing some windshield wiper motions right here in the middle so that I can blend this lighter area with the darker shadow that I've just applied. Alright, there we go. You can see the slight gradient effect that's happening, and that's exactly what we're going for. We want to create a nice variety of colors from light to dark. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye. There we go, and now we're going to move on to the final darkest pink color, and we're going to focus that on the outer V shape of the eye. And for this shade, I'm going to be using the color Love from the Colourpop X Sailor Moon collection. I love this palette, by the way. It's a nice dark rosy color, and we're only going to be focusing that on the very outer edge here, so it's not going to make up a lot of the color palette of the eye. It's just going to add some depth to the colors that we already have there. And for this application, I'm going to be using a much smaller, fluffy brush. A general rule that I like to follow is that the darker your colors go, the smaller your brush gets. So I'm just going to dip in and tap off into that darker color, and the application process I'm going to be using is first I'm going to start on the lower part of the lid here and just go back and forth on this very outer third, and then I'll do the same on this upper part of the V, just as slightly as possible. So you want to be very precise and very careful with how much movement you are giving to your brush. And again, it's better to start off with just a little bit of product on your brush and build up from there, especially with darker colors. So I'm just back and forth, light motions on that lid there, building slowly and carefully. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other half of that V shape that I'm going for. And then I'll also do a little circular blending motion just right here in the corner to make sure this line here and this line here It's nice and connected and blended. And now I'm going to finish up on the other eye. Now for the middle of the lid here, I usually like to do something glitter or metallic, just so that the light is really reflective here in the middle, so it kind of opens your eye up. And I'm going to use something from the Neon Obsessions palette again. I'm going to take this really glittery pink color here. And for glitters like this, I like to take them on my finger. So I'm going to take my ring finger and just swirl it around right in the pan. And I'm going to take it and I'm basically going to use light pressure to press and swipe with small little stippling motions. And I'm just going to concentrate that from the inner corner of the eye to right on that halfway point and maybe a little bit over. So I'm kind of blending that line between the pink shadow and the glitter with my finger. There we go, nice and glittery, and now I'll do the other side. Alright, there we go. The upper portion of the eyeshadow is complete. Now that the eyeshadow is done, I'm going to move on to my base. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a shake, and I apply this directly onto my face. I'm just going to put a few little dots here, and then I'm going to blend it out using a sponge that I have wet and squeezed out. I prefer a damp sponge to give it more of a dewy look. That's my preferred way to go about it, but you could use a brush or whatever you prefer. So I'm going to start in the middle area of my face because that's where you're going to want the most coverage. And then I'll work my way down and around. Now you'll notice I didn't get right up under my eye, and you're going to want to avoid putting foundation there because we are going to conceal under our eyes with concealer. And if you put too much stuff up under your eyes, it could get really crepey and creasy and nasty, so just leave that area blank for concealer. Alright, it's all nice and blended in, and so now I'll move on to concealer. So I do kind of like a two-step process for my concealer. First I'm going to go in and apply the concealer itself, and then immediately after I've got the concealer blended how I want it, I'm going to go in with a microfiber sponge and some setting powder so that the concealer is set as quickly as possible so there's no time for any creases to happen. So take my concealer and I just apply two little dots, one in the corner here and one in the outer corner, because you really don't need that much concealer. A lot of people on YouTube do a style of makeup, which is fine, but that you don't really need to do. You don't need all of that coverage. And if you start in the corners here, that's where most of the darkness is on most people's eyes. So you start where most of the pigmentation is, and then you move into the middle, which is where most people get creasing and creping. So that way most of the product is not concentrated here in the middle, and you have a less likely chance to get crusty under eyes throughout the day. So I'm just going to bounce my little sponge here in the corner where I get a lot of my darkness, kind of down this way. And then once I've got most of the product blended out there, I'll move more to the center to cover that area. And then the same thing with this outer corner. I'm going to concentrate most of the product on the darkness in this outer part of the socket. And then I will pull it in to the center here and just kind of blend all around. And I'm also going to take it and follow the line of my lower eyelid up this way. And that's going to kind of sharpen the eyeshadow that we have there. And then I like to use the flat edge of this just to get a nice straight cut kind of line up around the eyeshadow. The concealer is blended to my liking, so now I'm going to take this microfiber sponge, swirl it in the powder, and just apply it right to my under eyes. Now I look up when I do this so that my under eyelid skin is pulled, not pulled, but it's tight, that it gets rid of the wrinkles so that the powder is setting that smooth surface and it's not setting any of the wrinkled skin. So that should hold me through any Lolita functions I go to throughout the day. And you can see the difference this concealer covers and brightens pretty well. Looking over here, it kind of looks like I have a black eye now. But now I'm going to do the other side. And so what I like to do, this is optional, but I think it really upgrades the look that you're doing, kind of finishes it off and brings it all together, is I like to add a little bit of color just underneath the eye here. I usually do a matching set of colors, the light, medium, and dark gradient underneath as well, but for something more universal and simple like this, I'm just going to use the medium pink shade under my eye. So I'm going to take that really small blending brush that I used before. I'm going to go into that medium pink we did and just run it along my bottom eyelid. There we go. I think that should be good. And then just make sure that you connect it with the eyeshadow that's out here on the corner. Just give it a nice soft little blend and you're good. I'm going to do the other side. Now I'm going to move on to my brow products. I use the Anastasia Brow Wiz, which is just like a little angled brow crayon. I like to keep it pretty natural for my Lolita looks, so I didn't add a bunch of product, but as you can tell, it does look a little more defined and filled in. Next step is probably the trickiest step for most people, eyeliner. Something I recommend if you're new to doing eyeliner is use a brush tip. It's usually the easiest to control, at least for me anyway. So I'm using the Physicians Formula Eye Booster and the waterproof formula. I'm gonna give this a nice shake. I like to start here in the middle of the eyelid, and I do really thin eyeliner at first, so you might not see me applying it at first, but I do very thin and small strokes. So I start in the middle, like I said, and I bring it out to the corner of my eye here, and then I go to the inner corner and I meet it in the middle where I started. Very thin line, like I said. I think you can see it a little bit. So once I get that first really thin line down, then I'm going to go start my brush a little bit out from the corner of my eye, and basically where I'm starting is where the furthermost point of the eyeliner is going to be, and so I'm going to lay my brush there and pull it in and meet it with the line that I've made on my eyelid. There we go. And I usually like to do a smaller wing for Lolita, so again it might be a little hard for you to see. And this first line doesn't have to be pretty, we're gonna fix it. It's mostly just a guide you're making for yourself. So I've got that first line laid down, and now I'm going to come from the lower eyelid area and connect it to the point I just made to get that nice V shape. So I start at the lower eyelid, and again I go very slow And I use slow little movements. So now I've got the frame of my eyeliner made. It's just 2 lines, and now I'm going to color it in. There we go, I've got the shape made, and now I like to do tight lining for my eyeliner. And what that means is I'm gonna get right up on like the lower part of my eyelid here in between the lashes so that there's no like fleshy color in between my lashes, and it makes the eyeliner look really, really nice. So I kind of tilt my head back and make a crazy face, and I very carefully, with very small movements, get in between my lashes. Don't be surprised if you get a bit of eyeliner in your eyeball. It's all part of the process. There we go, I'm happy with that. And I'm gonna quickly do the other eye off camera so I'm not nervous with you watching me. Just gonna curl my lashes here with this guy. Just get as close as I can to the base of my lashes, give them a couple squeezes. There we go, nice and curled. And I'm going to be using the Pixie Large Lash Mascara. I'm gonna tilt my head back and just use, again, just short little stroke moves to coat the ends of my lashes. That's what I'm focusing on first. Get those little inner lash guys. And I like to go up and a little bit outward so my lashes have like a nice fan effect. Now I'm going to curl the other side. Ollie, please say hello and then goodbye. Next, I'm going to go for my blush. I'm going to be using a NARS blush here, and I'm going to take that on a fluffy face brush. And again, as with a lot of my other techniques, I'm going to start by doing small and light little stippling motions in this area right here. There we go. And I do like to finish off my blush by putting a little bit on the tip of my nose as well. I think it makes it extra cute for a sweet Lolita look. Now we're going to do some highlighter. I'm using this palette from Jaclyn Cosmetics. I'm going to go in with a medium light highlighter shade on a fan brush like this and just lightly brush it over where my cheekbones naturally are, and the brush will naturally catch where my bone structure sticks out, and then I'll kind of go back and forth and concentrate a little bit more of the product because I really like a glowy effect with my makeup. If you're not as much of a fan of highlighter, you can do a little bit less than me, but I like a lot. I'll also take the excess from my cheekbones and brush it on the tip of my nose like this. I'll also take a little on my upper lip like that. And then I'm going to take a small flat brush like this, and I'm going to use it to apply some highlight to the inner corners of my eyes. It'll help to make your eyes look a little bigger, a little brighter. And then I'm going to take the highlighter as well and go on my brow bone, just really close to the brow right here, probably like halfway to your brow to the tail. And then I'll take my finger and I'll kind of press it out a little bit just to like give it a nice little blend. You don't want it to be too harsh. And then I also like to take that tiny little brush and also put a little bit on my nose here and do the same thing, pat it out with my finger. Next, we're going to do the lips. I prefer a matte lip cream for my lip color. I think for something like this, a pink is nice, but something more neutral will be beneficial to balance out the bright colors in the eyeshadow we've got here. So I'm just going to slap this on. And to finish that off, I'm also going to top it with a gloss. I think adding a nice shiny effect to the lips looks really nice in pictures, and it works really well for a sweet look. And finally, as is necessary for all sweet looks, I'm going to add a little more glitter. So I'm going to take this from Colourpop. It's like a glitter gel, so you don't have to worry about using a glitter base or a glitter glue or anything like that. So I'm just going to swirl a little bit on my finger here, and I'm going to dab it on my cheeks, like so. Mostly over the blush, and it adds just such a cute little sparkle. Well, here you have it, the final universal sweet Lolita makeup look, along with a sweet cord I put together really quick. That's gonna do it for this tutorial, guys. I hope that you learned something today that you can take and use for your next sweet Lolita makeup. Thank you so much for spending some time with me on my channel. And if you enjoyed what you saw in this video, please consider subscribing down below. I would really appreciate it. Well, I'm gonna go and enjoy my Saturday, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
No.